Good day, everyone. I'm Gaby Giraldo.
And I'm Tenny Dusu. We're students at Central Piedmont and interns at the galleries.
Today, we welcome Prock, whose work is on exhibit at the Galleries at Central Piedmont's Mirancas campus.
So how are you doing today, Prock?
I'm doing great. How are you both doing?
We're doing really well. So could you take a couple of minutes to tell us about your exhibit?
Oh, sure. My exhibit is it's called Nature Reimagined, and it's at the Mirancas campus. I have 14 pieces that I wanted intentionally made pieces that were different, but all representative of what I do.
Your website mentions that you started doing your work in 2003. So what were you doing before?
So graduated, went into business in the finance world, and did that for 30 some years. But always needing, I needed to do something to kind of feed my creative side. So
how did you find out that you loved clay?
Really kind of by luck. I got a flyer for the organization that I'm still affiliated with, and thought, oh, I'll go down and try it. And it was actually a class in throwing, so it was beginning throwing, which I had never done, and sat down at the wheel. And by the end of the night, I knew that that was what I was going to keep doing. It felt right. It was working with clay is so tactile, and especially when you're throwing, like you feel the granules of the clay, and kind of everything is by feel. You pull everything up, and it's all touch, and I loved it. So went home, told my husband, I'm in love. This is what I'm gonna keep doing. So that's how I got started, and gosh, 20 years later, I'm still doing it and still learning.
You could say it found you then.
I like
it found me, yeah. Of course, what I do now is a lot different than I did then, but it got me started.
I love that. Your work is very, very unique. We love the different textures that you bring forward. So how did you develop this style of work that you're doing right now?
I always felt like I needed to do something unique to the exterior. So there were just something, it took me a long time to figure out that I could actually add things to the clay on the outside to make them look how I wanted them to look. But I started experimenting in some of I started taking sculptural classes as well as all throwing classes, and started experimenting with, how things would look, how could I glaze them, and, and I just kept trying different things that I would see. And I really started to look at the things in nature that I thought were pretty cool, like bark or fungus, mushrooms, things like that. And it's not everything I created looked very good. Some of them hit the trash, but it started me thinking and noticing what things worked and what things didn't, and what I could do to them. And so now that's pretty much every piece I have has something attached to it texturally, and the glazes are textural. They're just something with me and touch. I want to touch it, and I want other people to want to touch it. And to me, when you have that kind of inviting exterior, they'll look at me and can I touch it? Yes, absolutely. I want you to touch it. So that's how I got started in that.
Yeah, from that, I think it would be hard to answer the next question, but what is your favorite sculpture?
I'm going to have two favorites. I love river birch bark trees. There's something about that bark as it peels off that, if you look at a birch tree, and there's like pieces just like rolled up and all different colors, and there's something about that. And so I've tried for probably 6 or 7 years now to get a birch bark texture that I think looks like a birch bark tree, and I finally got it. This about 2 years ago. I finally got one. So those pieces those pieces, and specifically, I make a piece that looks like a bunch of river birch bark trees together. That's probably my favorite in that venue. And then I also really love making things that look like they came out of the sea. And so I've got a kind of almost a bowl-like form that I attach shelly looking things and fungusy, but sea fungus on the outside. and then lots of colors on the inside where they all mix. And so those two, probably the river birch bark and the piece with a lot of textural glazes and colors inside and out. That's probably my favorite. Had to have those in there.
No, I love textures as well. That's something that I'm very fascinated with these days. But I did have one more question for you. So knowing what you know now and all the wealth of information that you've learned on your journey, what advice would you give to your younger self?
My advice would be to myself to just keep learning and pushing and doing what I think, what makes me happy, because I get joy out of the piece. I know when I make a piece that brings me joy, I smile, and I want to smile all the time. And I think telling myself to continue to do that, and whether other people like it or not, if I like it, that's okay. Because I've been told my stuff is really different, it's weird, and people will go, oh, but that's okay. I think continuing to feel strong myself that's really it's a worthwhile type of it. For me, it's worthwhile, and that's all that should matter in the end.
That's beautiful.
I
And
think-
your work is beautiful too.
Yeah, I think
Thanks.
I think that's something that we can all learn from, and it's learn to love our stuff first, and that way other people will also appreciate it.
Yeah, I think so. And if you've learned that already at your age, good for you. Took me a lot longer.
I think it's something we learn every day. I think you always have your moments when you're like, oh, is it really good?
Well, yeah.
It's a good reminder to hear it from someone else as well.
Yeah, with much experience.
Yes.
Well, Anne Prock, thank you for joining us today. Your exhibit, Nature Reimagine, will be at Central Piedmont's Merenques campus until June 16th, 2022.
And all your works will be available for purchase with proceeds benefiting you, the artist, and the Central Piedmont Gallery program. So we want to say thank you again for joining us today, and we hope you have a great day.
Thanks, you too. It's great talking to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.